welcome to Meet the Candidate. My guest for this session is Christopher Savage, and he's running for Spokane City Council District 1, Position 2.
Yes.
And thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Just a basic get acquainted conversation, starting with tell us about where you grew up and kind of went to grade school. What was your early experience?
Well, I've been living up on the north side on Indian Trail for about 25 years now. I originally went to the private school, Northwest Christian, but then I switched over to the public school system around 5th grade with my brother and went to Indian Trail, went up to Salk when it was still, the 7th and 8th grade rather than the 6th, 8th to 7th and 8th grade now and before the whole remodeling. And then I went to North Central and I graduated there in 2009, and then I went over to Western Washington University to pursue college.
Okay, what did you study?
I pursued politics, philosophy, and economics with a minor in the German language.
Okay, is there an interesting course that stuck out in your head?
I read Thomas Hobbes' The Leviathan, and the Philosopher King kind of struck with me for some reason, where if you want to have a representative or a politician that wants to encompass a lot of the stuff that, runs a city, so like the economy, philosophy about how to apply legislation, that kind of thing, where they can encompass everything about it rather than be a certain, niche to a certain way.
Okay, so a long-time fascination with kind of political science and the workings of government.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. What outside of the school kind of atmosphere really drew your attention? Out of school activities that you pursued?
Well, when I was in college, I was a Residence Hall Association president, and that really helped me kind of pursue kind of a civil service kind of thing, because I was representing 4,400 students on campus at that point, and it was a huge responsibility. I had a responsibility of 70 grand of the students' funds to apply to student activities on campus to make sure that they're involved and want to stay on campus rather than go off campus and do other activities. So just stuff like that, where I don't know why, but I feel, I like the community in which I live in. I want to do what I can to give back to it in whatever capacity I can. And I feel like that's one of the ways I can.
Okay, I know that you're a big reader because you came in with a book, and we talked a little bit about people. Yeah, I always have to carry a book with me as well. That's something that's a fascination. A favorite book that you've read, other than the one from school, but one that's really struck you and affected you as you grew up.
Well, it was probably Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. That one was a really gritty Western that I really liked, that kind of didn't glamorize the West, but kind of made it a really kind of what it was, and not just kind of like this cowboy yeehaw kind of stuff, but more of a gritty, Americans trying to just get by, and it was just living life, and sometimes stuff happens, and I don't know, one of those. And also I grew up, reading the Harry Potter series and, Aragon before, the movies and stuff and all that. The books are way better in my opinion, but
yeah, books always have a lot more depth than the movies. So.
Your imagination is so much better than sometimes what's up on the screen.
Yeah. So how about a first job? Those are always good formative experiences. A first job where you connected my effort with my pay.
Well, first one was, I guess, technically as a food service worker at North Central. I started working there when I was, I think, 15. There was some stuff you could do with the city and the school to show that you could work with them, and I got, free food at lunch and stuff like that. So it started off there, and my actual first paying job was probably as a pool boy for Empire Pools out at Windermere. So for my first summer when I was 16, I was out there in the heat, going to certain pools out in the Mead District that were just sometimes were green, sometimes were pink. You'd be surprised at how many things you could find in a pool, and I just got in there with my manager who was working with me. His name was Gene, and we cleaned pools, we fixed them, and that was it was difficult. I didn't last long, but I did the whole summer with it, and definitely a way of saying, this is a really hard job sometimes, or some people who are doing the same thing.
You stuck it out through the summer.
Oh yeah. And that was pretty hard, being a 16-year-old who, I'm not going to make an excuse, but, I was kind of complaining too much about, all this stuff and hard work, when I'm glad my father pushed me to say, hey, you need to do this and stop complaining.
But that's what those jobs at 16 are good for.
Oh, yeah.
Learning that sometimes work is not fun and you just got to get it done.
Yeah, put your nose to the grindstone, just get it done.
Yeah. So is there some place that you've traveled, that you've brought back some experiences anecdotes that you think of as you think about Spokane?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to travel too much the past 8 years of my life. I've been chronically ill, so that's the reason why I've just able to start running. I was going to run 2 years ago, but personal affairs kind of inhibited that from happening. So now I feel it's the right time. Plus, my health is a little bit better, where I can actually focus on the city and my community rather than on myself and getting better.
Well, good. I'm glad you're doing better.
Well, thank you.
So that kind of answers the why you volunteered to run for elected office now. But why what made you decide to do what most people don't do, which is to say, yeah, I can do that. I'm going to run.
I'm really concerned at how our city is going in the direction in which it's kind of traveling, and I kind of want to guide that in the right direction. And I feel like there's a supermajority on the city council right now that just kind of rubber stamps legislation without looking at it and reading it. And that's why I kind of bring up my reading, is because I love to read, whether it's dry stuff. And I feel like sometimes they're not looking through it in the right way, so they bring up a thing to vote, and then they'll say, well, we need to look at this more, when all the information is already there, so they keep kicking the can down the road. Mm-hmm. Like the parking ordinance that just got approved, that should have been approved about, I would say, a month ago, but because of certain things that were being retooled and not put down, it kept being not completed for some reason.
Okay. So how do you see the duties of a council member?
One of them is probably easiest and is a low-bearing fruit for trying to grab it, but it's just attendance. I mean, I go to a lot of the meetings for the city, the neighborhood councils. I mean, all of them. I mean, I go to South Avoid Indian Trail, North Indian Trail, 5 Mile Prairie, Emerson Garfield, and there are very few times when the city council candidates who are supposed to be there are there, and I think it's imperative to them being there, because sometimes there's information that is just thrown at you with a bunch of stuff, and sometimes people can't understand what's going on, and if the city council member is there to kind of facilitate that, maybe some things can be understood better so that people don't get animated or a little bit angry about stuff that they may not be understanding. And also think I can help, can help with the communication the other way, where if there's any problem at that kind of council level, neighborhood council level, it can go up the ranks rather than, going through a bunch of other bureaucratic stuff that, people get angry because sometimes they just get sidelined rather than getting answered what, the problem is happening with.
Okay. So being there and being that communication conduit is
being an Ansible between the city and the neighborhood councils.
Okay, well, you get the last question is the 1 minute closing for why should people vote for Luke, for, I knew that was going to happen once today, for Christopher Savage for Spokane City Council.
Just frankly, it's more kind of on just kind of ramrodding the attendance kind of thing. I'm going to be there, whether it's a family emergency or medical emergency. I want to be there every time, because I don't know what other jobs you get paid 100% of the time, or 100% for being there 50% of the time. I think it's really important that these people are going to these things because they're compensated really well for a part-time job, and when they're not there, it just makes the city look bad, and it also makes the city run less efficiently than what it could be.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in today, Christopher, and I'm glad that we could have a chat.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity.